jump right in, as we'll certainly let our main stage moderator do that. But again, welcome to Building and Sustaining Your Career Pathway. Just gonna go over some very quick housekeeping rules before we go ahead and get started. Again, this event has been approved for CHES and CHES credit. So certainly if you would like a certificate of completion, please email NACCT. Allow for about 1 or 2 days for us to respond to your email. The event ID is located right there on the screen. And then in the chat right now, we'll be sharing the credit request form. And so you can click this form at the end of the event. You can then add in for your CHES and MCHES credit. And the deadline for that is November 30th. And so I'm just gonna give a very quick overview of who we are as an organization, both our local chapter as well as our larger chapter. And again, before that, another few housekeeping rules. This webinar is indeed being recorded. All participants are placed on mute upon entry. If possible, please have your camera on. It is going to be a very interactive panel discussion, and so you can be fully engaged with each and every one of us. If you have any questions to ask during the rapid fire session, please utilize the chat function at the bottom of your screen during the presentation. Again, so who are we? NACCE Connecticut, and NACCE itself dates back all the way to the 1930s as an organization that was developed by Black healthcare executives who formed the National Hospital Association as an affiliate of the National Medical Association. In 1968, NACCE was formed in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which Mr. Everett V. Fox was named as the first president. And today, NACCE has grown into a premier membership organization for Black healthcare professionals. Our mission as an organization, as we see as a nonprofit association, is to promote the advancement and development of Black healthcare leaders and elevate the quality of healthcare services rendered to minority and underserved communities. And NACCE Connecticut happens to be a 7-year-old chapter and is one of the 34 chapters across the entire country. So now at this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our main stage moderator, Jennifer Quay Hudson. Jennifer is the Director of External Affairs for Connecticut Voices of Children. She holds nearly a decade of experience building relationships to advocate on behalf of Connecticut's most marginalized students. As part of the program team at CT Voices, she leads on communications design, public relations, events and community engagement, as well as movement building and equity. Jennifer earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science from Quinnipiac University. She currently chairs the executive board of the Education Startup New Haven Counts and is an acting board member of New Haven Legal Assistance Association. And fun fact, I have known Jennifer since we were about 12 years old. So I'm really happy to have her here with us. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chi, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Building and Sustaining Your Career Pathway. Again, my name is Jennifer Quay Hudson, and I will be serving as your main stage moderator. So let's get into an overview of the event. Next slide. We'll start with the rapid fire talks, which will give us a peek into the necessary skills to break into a career of your choice in healthcare. Then we'll move into our breakout sessions. We'll hear more from our main speakers about their personal journeys to leadership through their own perspectives. And in those breakouts, you'll be able to ask questions. So please be sure to take a moment at this time to grab a pen, a notepad, and take ample notes as we move along. We want to make sure that you don't lose those good questions before you have a chance to ask during our Q&A. And finally, we will reconvene, we'll share some final thoughts for you, and we'll adjourn for the evening. If you're having any technical difficulties at all, please feel free to reach out to one of us in the chat, and we'll make sure that you are supported. So before jumping in, we want to give many thanks to Lee & Best Development Firm for sponsoring the giveaway for today's event. Lee & Best is focused on supporting individuals and organizations in their developmental processes. They focus on HR solutions consulting, training and staff development, staffing, and career coaching. Tonight, they're offering a free 45-minute career consultation session. You'll be able to talk through your career journey and challenges, current career aspirations, and receive recommendations to support you toward achieving those goals. For a chance to win, please take a moment now and enter your name and email address into the link provided in the chat. A winner will be selected at random during the breakouts and will be announced during our main stage session after the breakout sessions conclude. So let's get started with our rapid fire talks. I'm so pleased to introduce to you all this powerful lineup of presenters. First, we'll hear from Chelsea Perry, the co-founder of Accelerator and Senior Manager of Product Development at CVS Health. Chelsea is joined by Ino Okechukwu, co-founder of Accelerator and Program Manager for Business and Finance at the University of Wisconsin Health. Next, we'll hear from Ose Maves, Vice President of Government Relationships for Acadia Health. Then we'll hear from Cliff Brown, Senior HR Business Partner for Yale New Haven Health. Then Dr. Selena Osei, the Program Manager of Integrated Care Management at Mass General Hospital. Dr. Alvin Tran, Assistant Provost for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of New Haven. And finally, we'll hear from Dr. Jay Morris, the Vice President of Education at Yale New Haven Health. Welcome to all the main stage speakers, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We don't take your presence and commitment to this work for granted. So let's get started. Chelsea, I will first hand it over to you. Each main stage presenter will answer this question. What is the one skill or skill set that you believe to be critical to success in your career in healthcare? Chelsea, once you're done speaking, I welcome you to introduce the next, or have the next speakers sort of jump right in after you. Chelsea?
Sure thing. Thanks for the excellent introduction, Jennifer. And I'll say here, first and foremost, I am a loyal past executive board member of the NACI SoCal chapter, bleed SoCal chapter, but I'm so excited to support the NACI Connecticut team. I think that's one of my favorite aspects of being a part of this organization, is that we reach across borders and we put on really awesome programs. So thank you for having me and Eno here today to join this session. In terms of that one skill that we were asked to speak to in the TED Talk, I think one of my favorite things to hear and to say in the healthcare industry is that this is an ever-changing industry. And so in my view, in order to build and sustain a successful career in the healthcare industry, where our focuses and priorities can literally change at the drop of a pandemic, it's really important to be able to adapt quickly, to upskill or reskill your skills and experiences when they become obsolete or you're no longer effective in your role. And ultimately, it's important to become a master at pivoting. And so I've never been more excited to be in this industry, because I think we have a unique ability and opportunity in the times we're in to explore new partnerships and technology and ways of working in areas that we've previously been stuck because of red tape or honestly a lack of incentive to change. I think over the past 2 years, we've seen progress be accelerated in our industry. And so if it's your desire to be a part of this industry for the long haul, or frankly, any industry for the long haul, it's imperative to be flexible and to learn how to drop the things on your plate that are no longer delivering value in your organization. And if you find that you're lacking in a particular skill set, go out there and grow it. There's so many resources in terms of learning and development out there to really become what you want to be and have the skills that you want to have in this industry. And so I think that those are the key criteria or things I would say that are important to consider as you grow in your careers and you orchestrate your own master pivot. And so I'll go ahead and pass it over to Ose Maves to speak next.
Chelsea, they didn't tell me you were going to steal my thunder, but that is exactly right. I think my skill that I would recommend for folks who are trying to be successful is being able to adapt, to be prepared for it. So I just looked at my morning. I started with an election in Virginia, and a few minutes later, I was talking to CFOs about a piece of the Build Back Better plan. So having the skill set and doing the pre-work is so important, so you can speak to a bevy of issues and you don't have to be 2 inches deep. I think everybody has to have a broad range of knowledge, but how far you can go into it. And to be successful in really complex organizations, which every single healthcare organization is at this moment, you are going to have to develop a skill set and a knowledge base of diverse issues. So when I said be prepared to adapt, if it's talking to operators, if it's working in different departments and having that knowledge, what's important to those operators, what's important to those CFOs, your stakeholders, understanding their needs and understanding what they know so you can speak to that effectively and provide value is what I mean by being prepared to adapt. There's just so much going on that being a consistent, reliable source of information is essential, rather than having to get it from two people. In my particular space as a government relations person, I like to narrow it down and be that source of information for really all my stakeholders. So I've come from rural parts of the country to urban parts. So adaptability is the key piece. Your issues are similar, but there's always a different flavor that makes every situation unique. So that's what I would claim as my success. And I'm going to turn it over to Clifford Brown for the next speaker. Or Cliff Brown, I'm sorry, Cliff.
It's okay. I get that quite often. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Cliff Brown. One key skill that I would say is important in order to build and sustain a career in my profession, human resources, is to maintain good communication, as well as good communication with peers and employees that you work with. Professionals in my field quite often come across a number of challenging situations, and we receive a lot of interesting information that we have to communicate to employees in the workforce. For example, my department was tasked with sharing information about our policies and procedures as it pertains to the COVID vaccine mandates for all of the employees in our workforce. As you can imagine, this was a very sensitive issue. A lot of employees had questions and concerns because it impacted their daily lives. As a HR professional, I had to do my part to maintain good communication with the staff, listen to their concerns, be in some cases a sounding board for any issues that they had, and made sure that there was no misinterpretation or false information being spread. Good communication also becomes very important in my role when dealing with employee relation issues. Employees tend to come to HR professionals when they have questions about their benefits, salary, when they're dealing with challenging issues with their peers and managers in the workforce. So again, it's just very important that we maintain good communication, because individuals trust us with a lot of these sensitive issues, and essentially we want to do our part to make sure that their concerns are being heard. And now I'm going to actually turn this over to Dr. Selena Ose.
Thank you, Cliff. One critical skill to build and sustain your career pathway is the ability to be self-aware. The world, as we know, is rapidly changing, such that jobs across industries that didn't exist 10 or 5 years ago currently dominate in a way that has forced us to really reevaluate who we are personally and how we are positioning ourselves to navigate the new landscape. There is really no blueprint for many of us who are now navigating spaces in industries that are very new. And for those of us who remain in previously existing industries, disruption is the order of the day. Being self-aware allows you to recognize your strengths, your weaknesses, and opportunities that can and should be assessed and leveraged for growth and success. So what does self-awareness mean? It means that you are able to take an introspective look at yourself to understand the self-limiting barriers and attributes that can impede your personal and professional growth, which can enable you to be very intentional and strategic in your decision-making while aptly adapting to changing environments. We should always aim to cultivate self-awareness capabilities at every stage of our educational and professional career by being fully present in all of our experiences, taking the time to reflect on those experiences and making an action plan to correct identified barriers in the growth pathway. And for those of you who will be joining me in my breakout session, we'll try to go over some of those examples of some of the action plan items I've personally adapted and has definitely helped me in my career pathway. Thank you, and I'll now pass the mic to Dr. Alvin Tran.
All right, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good evening. It is an honor to be here tonight. So I'm going to build off on those tips that the guest speakers have talked about so far. Mine has a lot to do with learning from moments of adversity, including moments of failure. I'm in my office right now at work. I'm looking at my diplomas. I have a Master of Public Health from Emory University and a Doctor of Science from Harvard University. But thinking about all the things I went to, all the challenges and adversities that I had to overcome to get to where I am today, there are so many lessons that I have learned. So my critical skill that I want to share with you is that you need to be able to, in addition to adapt, communicate clearly, knowing yourself, is to also learn from your previous mistakes and maybe even the mistakes of other people. So take those moments of failure as lessons learned. A quote from me that I always use as guidance whenever I'm struggling with something, whenever I encounter a moment that didn't go as well as I anticipated, is one from Maya Angelou. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, how you can still come out of it. And that's a huge testament of all the successes that I have today. I'm an assistant provost for diversity, equity, and inclusion here at the University of New Haven in West Haven, Connecticut. It's a position that people usually are tenured faculty to earn, and I was able to get promoted to this position just less than a year being a new faculty member at the School of Health Sciences. And I worked hard, I learned a lot. I take every moment I can to learn from previous mistakes, and I encourage you to do the same. Don't be bogged down by a moment of failure. Rise from it, learn from that particular situation. I wasn't a straight through candidate when it come from a master to a doctoral level degree. I took time off to reflect on what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And I wanted to build upon those strengths. I took a year off to try new positions. I went from studying public health to being a health news reporter in DC, then making my way back into academia. So my career trajectory wasn't linear. It was all over the place, but I gotta admit and acknowledge that it's because of my ability to just take a moment to reflect on my previous mistakes and moments of failure and learn from them. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Morris.
Thank you, Dr. Tran. Jay Morris, Vice President Education, Yale New Haven Health. And I was listening to the speakers. Chelsea talked about adapting quickly and upscale. Osei talked about prepared to adapt. Dr. Osei talked about the ability to be self-aware. And then Dr. Tran talked about learning from failure. And so my focus is on intuitive agility. And then this is a skill set I think is important for all leaders. And it's the ability to come into a situation and remove fear. And as I think about all that we've been through, finding leaders who were steadfast, immovable. And this is not about religion, but for me, it's about being holistic, body, mind, but also being able to bring our spirit into the workplace and allow our very best self to emerge as powerful, as authentic, as an intentional, being transparent and vulnerable in order to transform the cultures and environments that we're in. And so as we talk about this, and this skill set goes across all industries, pharmaceutical, which I've been in, insurance, government, healthcare, and consulting. And so I'm going to talk about all of the things we've heard. How do you package that, put that in, but how do you show up as your best self and demonstrate the magnificence? We're made in the image of God, that magnificence that each of us brings, and how do we allow that to emerge? And there are specific things that can be done to help develop this skill set. And with that, back to you, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you all so much for those critical thoughts. I will say, as someone who has been leading a lean team through the pandemic, all of the points that you all broached here today strike a chord with me, and I'm taking notes in my head. And I've been in my career for a little bit, and I am have just been struck by a word. So thank you so much for sharing those. One thing I might add is that sort of the package of everything that you all have said together paints this picture that it is not only critical to be able to identify a specific skill, that you need to hone. And many of these things that folks have named today were specific skills, and being able to identify those specific skills and hone them, but also being able to build up the muscle around intentional skill building is gonna carry folks throughout the course of their entire career. So thank you all for those critical thoughts. Next, we're gonna move into our breakout session so we can really sort of get into the nitty gritty of what folks have begun to offer here. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we do that. The breakout rooms will be 40 minutes in total. And I know that seems like a long time, but I think, trust me, it's gonna feel like a lot of information in a really short amount of time. And I think we've seen that here with just the nuggets that we've been offered so far. So I encourage you to keep your notepad and your pen close and take as many notes as possible to ensure that you get the most out of these sessions. There will be 5 simultaneous sessions running. The details for those sessions are here on the screen. You will automatically be placed in breakout sessions, so don't fret about how do I get to which session. Also, please don't fret about missing out on one session or the other. Each of these sessions will be recorded, and so if you end up in a session, please lean into that session, and then after today's event, we will send out the recordings for each of the other sessions. You'll also receive presentation materials that are shared with us here today immediately after the event. So in a moment or so, you should see a request to join a breakout session pop up on your screen. Please simply select join breakout and you will automatically move into your breakout session. At the end of the session, our technical staff will move everyone back to the main stage for some closing remarks. So please stay with us after the breakout.